This is an introduction to functions. I'm actually going to be using somebody else's video, a man named Kevin Hurley. I don't know him, but I want to give him credit. I found this on YouTube, but I'm using my own voiceover for this video. So you can ignore the fact that it's a review, and you can ignore the fact that that it has a different date and time on there. So what we're going to do is first we're going to look at function notation, and then we're going to look at how to graph functions. So when we have functions, we need to know how to write functions. We know what a function is now, and in order to write down functions, we've been writing it as a sentence, but you can also use an equation. So if you look at this function right here, we have f parentheses x equals 3x plus 2. Now the way we say that out loud is f of x equals 3x plus 2. Again, I'll say it, f of x equals 3x plus 2. That is not f times x. You're used to probably seeing parentheses with two things meaning multiplication, and if that were on the other side of the equal sign, you would be right. However, when we're looking at function notation, that just is f of x. We might have g of x or h of t or things like that. So if you see on the left side of the equal sign, just a letter, parentheses, with another letter inside of it, you say f of x, or whatever the letters are. And f is just the function name. That's all it is. It tells us that this one is f, because we could have multiple functions going on at the same time, and we need to be able to differentiate between them. So we can talk about f, or f of x. And we can differentiate that from g, or g of x, etc. So f is the function name, and we know that functions have inputs and outputs. So here, x is the input. Whatever's inside the parentheses is what our input is going to be. And then what's on the other side of the equal sign are our directions. How do we get the output? So in this case, in order to get the output, we have to take that input, x, and we have to multiply it by 3. Like I said, we could use t, we could use q, whatever. We're going to use x. So you take that x, you multiply it by 3, and then you add 2 to get our output. So let's see that in action. If we used 0 as our input, we could figure out what the output is. 3 times 0 plus 2, because we substitute in 0 for our input. So x, our input, is a variable. We call that the independent variable. We choose what x to use. And our output, after doing the arithmetic, is 2. That's also a variable. That's the that's the dependent variable. So we have 3 times the independent variable plus 2 gets us our dependent variable. 3 times 0 plus 2 equals 2. We can also do that with any x we choose. If we wanted to use 1, we could. We could use f of 1 equals 3 times 1 plus 2, and that gets us 5. We can do f of 2 equals 3 times 2 plus 2, and that gets us 8. We don't even have to use whole numbers. We could use 1.2 or 7.6, whatever. Now, we have an input of 0 and output of 2. We can make that a point in the coordinate plane. Just like you have xy, you learned about xy and plotting xy on a graph. We can do the same thing with functions. So we have f of x. And it's done the exact same way. It is not any different. So we have 3 points so far that we figured out: 0, 2, 1, 5, and 2, 8. So if we wanted to graph those on a coordinate plane, we could. So we have our x, we have our y, which is our f of x. Right? We have 0, 2, 2, 5. 0, 2, 1, 5, and 2, 8. And on our x-axis, we do the x's, and on the y-axis, we do our f of x's. Then we can connect those points if our domain tells us we can. So if our domain tells us we can plug in any number we want for x, then that means that we could connect our points. We have to make sure we have enough points so that we know how to connect them. In this case, it's a straight line, so it is a linear function. Plotting all the x-y combinations shows us a line, which makes it a linear function. Hopefully that is not new to you. We're going to be practicing all sorts of different functions. Linear functions are one of the easiest ones that we're going to learn, and those should be reviewed for you. If they're not, you should come see me, because if graphing lines is difficult for you, now it's just going to get harder. So you need to come see me, get that extra help that you need to get you caught up to where you're supposed to be. That's on you. Assess yourself. Hopefully this is reviewed to you. So f of x equals 3x plus 2 is really the same graph as y equals 3x plus 2. So when we're graphing, we can think of it as f of x equals 3x plus 2 or y equals 3x plus 2, and it's just the same thing. Okay? Functions work a little bit differently than equations. This function is written as an equation, but I don't want you to confuse the two. When we're graphing, however, they graph the exact same way. So now you should be able to answer the questions. See you later.